Hello, my name is Roman Gigiashvili, and this lecture is about some of my old memorable games. This game was played back in Soviet Union against also currently American GM Lev Albert in early 1970s. It's 73 or 74, maybe 72. It was played in USSR championship, and it was Benko Gambit. Well, it started with knight f3, knight f6, d4, c5, d5, b5, and I'm gonna tell you why it was memorable. The game was memorable to me because after c4, g6, cb, a6, and b6. This is declined Benko Gambit, where white doesn't want to have an extra pawn. They want to have some positional advantages. And again, what makes this game memorable for me, because I thought the game was played okay, and to my big surprise, of course, in 72 or 73, we didn't have any chess engines, computers. And now when I looked at the game with the Ripka, giving Ripka a long time to think, at a certain point, the attack was performed almost perfectly. And that pleased me very much. As any performer, I take a great pleasure from my old work, and I see that really it was played on high level. Although it doesn't do me any good now, it doesn't make me now a better or worse player, but it still gives me some personal satisfaction. So after a6, b6, black does not rush with taking pawn on b6, knight c3, knight bd7. Now, let me tell you what is the idea of playing b6. We don't want black to open a file if we took on a6. Now, if black takes with a queen on b6, and I had a lot of players played it with me, against me. So if black took queen on b6, then we would go e4, bishop g7, approximately how game would continue. And let me tell you, and now what black normally does, they go a5 with the idea of bishop a6. And positional idea behind move b6, then we want black to have pawn on a5. Now we would go a4. It looks like it weakens the b4 square. Now on bishop a6, we will go bishop b5. And if black went instead knight a6, of course we are not going to take on a6. We will go bishop b5 anyway. And after knight b4 and knight d2, white gets knight on c4. Very strong position of knight on c4. And instead of black having good counterplay on queen's side, normally in Benko on A and B file, here white has an advantage. For example, after bishop a6 going knight c4, and after queen c7, rook e1, and slowly preparing for e5. White will have an advantage. So this is the general idea why I always liked not accepting the sacrifice in Benko Gambit. After knight c3, knight bd7 was played, and here, well, black wants to take on b6 next move, but I played b7, and I think this is very interesting move idea. Well, the black has to take on b7 with the bishop, and then bishop is not placed very well on b7. So in my opinion, I thought, and I was right, that's exactly what happened. Eventually black will have to go with the bishop from b7 back to c8 to get any life at all. So in this position, after e4, bishop g7, goes general development, bishop e2, both sides castled, and black played queen to c7. Bishop f4, I don't go now after knight d2 and knight c4. Well, it was a possibility, but here on knight c4, knight b6 is possible, on bishop a6. This was an option, but I chose to play for a center, bishop f4, rook a to b8, and queen d2. So I abandoned completely knight d2 and knight c4. And it's clear that I'm aiming for e5. And I like the reason why I put bishop on f4. I want to make sure black cannot go e6. Well, if black doesn't go e6, then bishop on b7 will need to return to c8, and it's another tempo loss for black. And in this position, black did go bishop c8. See, that b7 move won us a tempo. Now rook f2 e1, queen a5, rook a to b1. So we're preparing bishop h6. And before we go bishop h6, we have to make sure our b2 pawn is protected. So that's why rook b1 is a good move. Knight b6. Well, when I analyzed this position with Ripka suggested rook e8, but these positions are not exactly good positions to analyze with Ripka and to ask for advice for black, because Ripka does not see any play for black either. Well, knight b6, it's a human move played by human, and idea is to go knight a4, possibly, well, for example, on h3, knight a4, to exchange some minor pieces and to get some play on queen side. After knight b6, the white immediately opens position by playing e5. After e5, position is very, very difficult for black. So what is it for black to do? Knight h5 was played, and after bishop h6, bishop g4. It's clear that black wants to exchange this knight on f3 that has certain pressure in the center. So black wants to play bishop f3 next move. And here comes very powerful sequence of moves that completely demolishes black's position And black will never have a chance, will never have a break to take on f3. Will never have time to play bishop takes f3. Every move I played, and according to Ripka, is the best move. Bishop takes g7. Obviously, you cannot take on f3 because the rook is hanging. So black has to take on g7. How? Well, my opponent took with a knight. Taking with a king is a lot worse, because then we take on d6. This is nearly instant win. Now again, taking on f3 is not good because white has in between d takes e. And if pawn takes on d6, then knight d4 practically ends the game on this spot, because now on bishop takes e2, knight c6, and on c takes d, queen takes d4 check, then taking on g4 the bishop, and white is going to have extra pawn in a completely winning position. So that's why my opponent took on g7 with a knight. And notice how move by move black will never have a chance to take on f3. Now pawn takes d6, and again bishop takes f3 is bad because de, pawn takes d6, and now very powerful move. This is the key move of whole game, and again completely approved by Ripka. After b4, black is forced to take on b4, and now knight e4. Well, of course, not immediate knight e4, because black is going to exchange queens. So we have to make sure we block that diagonal after pawn takes knight e4. And again, black does not have a chance to take on f3 because they get mated immediately. So what can they do after knight e4? After knight e4, f5 is absolutely forced because there is a dual threat, queen h6, knight f6 mate, and also knight f6 check with taking the bishop on g4. f5 was played. Now black wants to take on f3 next move, but it never happens. Queen h6. Now you see whichever knight will be taken by black, the other knight will go to g5. If pawn takes knight g5, and same thing if bishop takes the knight g5. They both lead to complete destruction. So after queen h6, only defensive move is knight e8 and knight f2 g5. So since black played bishop g4 6 moves ago, they never had a chance to take the knight on f3. Now after knight g5 and rook b7, knight e6, threatening queen takes f8 mate. Rook f2 f7. Now we take the bishop on g4. When my opponent took it back, could have taken the knight and wouldn't have been any different. So now knight d8. All of a sudden, there is a highly unusual fork on black rooks. Knight takes d5, knight takes b7, rook takes b7, and white has an exchange, but most importantly, black's pieces, they are scattered all over the board. Black's king is far, far from being safe, and white is tremendously active. Knight c5, attacking rook and attacking knight on e8. And in this position, the game is practically over. After knight c5, rook e7 was played. Well, on rook e7, I played knight e6, which is good enough to win the game, but as mentioned by Ripka mentioned that rook takes e7 is much stronger. Well, I still consider it perfect attack, even though I missed rook takes e7, because whatever I played, I was 100% sure it's good enough to win, and that's why those mistakes, those oversights should be forgiven. So knight e6, but the way I win immediately, rook takes e7, knight takes e7, and rook e1. This leads to complete destruction and a quick mate in a very, very few moves. Well, and again, I went knight e6, and black went knight g7, knight takes g7, and rook takes g7. And here I went rook e8 check, king f7, and rook b to e1. Completely pitiful position for black. Their pieces not coordinated. They have fianchetto the rook on g7 that practically has no moves. Rook cannot move. And white is completely dominating, three pieces attacking king. You know the end is near. Queen takes a2 was played. And after queen g5, my opponent here resigned. My opponent here resigned because of the threat of rook e1, e7 mate, and there practically no move here that they can make to prolong even any existence. Well, maybe queen a1 to stop rook e7 mate, which gives us a queen. So this is absolutely mating attack. So, and my opponent resigned. Now, what I want to tell you here is I strongly believe that in Benko Gambit, here, this b6 move is as good a move as the normal b takes a. Actually, I like it even better, and I strongly stand behind this move. So what happened in the game knight, the only thing I would suggest black should have done, d6, knight c3, bishop g7, and I believe this would have been probably the best way to resist. So otherwise the whole game was perfectly played by white. e4, castle, bishop e2, knight d7, b7. Well, in this position, once we got this, queens on c7, bishop went on f4, it might have been different move order, but the plan somehow is knight g4, then try to go knight e5 and to exchange some pieces. See, when we have four minor pieces each on a board, then space advantage and possibility of e5 becomes very, very powerful. Well, knight g4 is kind of slowing black down, and now knight e5. Of course, black, I wouldn't have taken on e5, I would have gone knight d2, but then to try some, to get some counterplay with e6. So in other words, not, in other words, not to go for a queenside play, but to go for a play in its center. And every time white plays b6, you Benko Gambit players, I want to tell you, doesn't matter which way you take on b6 with a knight or with a queen. I want to tell you that your play on the queen side will not be successful. There is no way it will be successful if white plays correctly. So I would recommend to concentrate on making e6 at some convenient moment and to try to get counterplay that way. Well, as for queenside play, I think this game is absolutely perfect illustration of what may happen when white's pieces become overly aggressive. Queenside play is extremely slow for black because the A file is closed and it takes long time to get anything constructive done on the queen side. So I hope you learned something from this. I thank you very much, and I hope you play this system for white against the Benko Gambit. Thank you.